Kingdoms rise and empires crumble, and the knowledge and wisdom from past ages are lost to the foggy ruins of time. But for genuine seekers of truth, one place stands alone on a hill. Shining brightly in the darkness, you, dear listener, have reached the Hidden Citadel.
Hey, welcome to the Hidden Citadel.
You found us.
I'm Willie Minix, I'm with Greg Kemp, and we are going to talk about Scottish fairies today. But before that, I wanted to ask Greg, tomato time yet? Have you started working on your tomatoes?
It is not. I do have to, I have to kind of get the soil, we still have a lot of snow that's melting.
Oh, so, do you?
Yeah, a lot. But
it's 80 degrees here today.
Oh, geez. Yeah, we're in New York, so it's like there's still probably 6 or 7 inches of snow in some spots. Like my backyard is so. Yeah.
I planted my corn. I planted cabbage, lettuce, carrots.
Oh,
beans.
They have that zone. I know. Yeah, my cousin.
We're right on the edge of 7B and 8A.
Yeah.
So there are people around here that grow lemon trees in their yard and palm trees and stuff.
Wow.
So I've got a lemon and a lime and an orange that at some point I'm going to try to plant. One of my buddies told me that all you have to do is put Christmas lights on it when it gets cold, and old-fashioned Christmas lights, and the bulbs will heat the plant up enough to keep it from freezing.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay.
And festive.
Yeah. At some point, we'll see.
It's really pruning time. Because according to my cousin Flip, that everything is anesthetized right now because it's cold. So the plants won't feel it when you snip them.
Well, it really is all and the energy has gone down into the roots.
Yeah.
And so when you cut it, there's nothing there, so it won't hurt it. I had to go, it was about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I went and pruned all my fruit trees. Yeah. I've got about 6 or 7 fruit trees in a little orchard in the back.
Yeah.
So I went and pruned all those, and now my plum trees are in full blossom. So it's like
that must be pretty, yeah.
Really nice. I built yesterday, somebody gave me a bunch of bricks, so I've been building a new fire pit in the back. Cleaned up my medical herb garden and got it all, or my medicinal herb garden, and got it all ready to grow again. And so it's and I pruned back my my raspberries. I've got some raspberry plants, and I
have those too. Yeah.
And so, I'm getting ready.
My blackberries.
Tomatoes ready yet?
Oh no, tomatoes won't go in for a long time. I got them from a guy named Frank who actually lives in North Carolina right now. He moved, but before he left, he just gave me this. He goes for his backyard, and I just stuck it in the ground, and it's gone. I mean, I get like monster blackberries.
We have them. They
pineapple size.
are. Yeah, they're like as big as my thumb.
Yeah.
I'm hoping the raspberries do well this year too. I just planted them last year. So,
mine are the wine berries, the little ones.
Oh, these are supposed to be the big thumb size red ones.
Oh yeah, I like those.
Yeah, there was a place that we used to go fishing in New York, some park up there, and they had lots of raspberries all over the park. And we were picking them one day, and we got in trouble by the park ranger because he was like, "Those are for the deer." And we're like, "Really? You can't handle like a cup or two going, us eating like we're here in the park eating?"
And meanwhile, they're paying people to hunt the deer because the deer are taking over. Hunt the deer, but don't let them starve.
Yeah, and speaking of taking over, that's kind of the topic today. Is you might have a fairy infestation. Well, especially if you live in like Scotland. So, the fairy infestation, I don't know.
Well, Well, that one guy gave some hints.
That's true. He did.
Yeah.
Guy is a guy named Kenny Boyle, and he's a nice guy. He's a Scottish playwright, and if you watch his Instagram feed, he talks all about Scottish mythology in his wonderful Scottish accent that he's got going on, and
Wonderful Scottish he's got going.
I like it. Like Willie from The Simpsons. It's a very melodic accent that Kenny has. Anyway, a lot of what we're going to talk about today is stuff that Kenny has mentioned in his on his shorts for Instagram. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, he's got so much interesting information, and I've been writing back and forth with him, asking him about things. What I've found in the child ballads, and he's making videos responding to some of the questions that I've had. So
that's awesome,
really nice. So I asked him about Thomas the Rhymer, and so
I saw that.
That in, and then I asked him about Tam Lin, and he did a video talking about Tam Lin, and it's so cool. It'd be really nice to sit down and kind of just pick his brain about all the stuff that he knows. But he talked about an interesting book that was written by, and we'll talk about it here eventually, a pastor that he was trying to, in the, I think it was the 17 or the 1600s, he was trying to figure out how fairy lore fit in with Christianity. And so he talks about how he thinks that a lot of demons, or a lot of demonology, was actually fairy activity. And so I was like, yeah, it was interesting. So let's just
interchangeable. I mean,
yeah, he talks about the Shiakin, which is the different types of fairies. I guess she, which is spelled like Sith, Sith.
I saw that. I was like, wow, the Sith Lord. That's cool.
And in one he talked about, no, this is where what's it, not Lewis or Tolkien, what's his name,
George Lucas.
George Lucas got the word for the Sith from fairies.
I thought he got it from the Scythians, the warrior people in the Old Testament.
I too, but then I saw some interview where he was saying, yeah, the spelling Sith was from the Scottish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. And I thought, but the Scythians are Scytha.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't. But I mean, they were like on a full gallop. Just said in full gallop on horseback, could turn and shoot with just full precision. Like, I mean, that would be it. Sith Lord could do that.
I saw a video of the Mongols too, and they had they were doing it. Like, they were filming these Mongol hunters riding a horse, and they were showing how the bottom, like their legs, would kind of be moving with the horse, but the top part is just sitting almost completely motionless while this part's moving around. And they
like it's not attached.
Yeah, almost like the way a bird can make his head kind of stay in. I saw a guy, he put a GoPro on a chicken's head to make it a steady cam. That's exactly what these doing, and they could sit there and shoot and hit a target because they're not, somehow they're completely balanced, and not being worked around by the horse.
Well, there's a torso that's made by Legos. So it's not attached to the bottom. It just turns.
Oh man! So the Shiakin, there are several types. So he talks about the Lianan Shi, and he was basically saying that these are the types of Shi or fairies that might interbreed with humans.
Okay.
And what you would end up with if this happened. So if a Lian Shi, which is a fairy woman, Lianan Shi is a fairy woman, if she has children with a human male, they will end up with children called urisks most of the time, or fairies. Their children either be just normal fairies that will go live in the fairy realm, or these urisks, which are, they have the body of a man, but they have either the head of a goat or the head of a wolf. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Let's go!
Dog Man of Michigan, and the Goat Man of wherever he's from, Pennsylvania.
Or any of the Ware family of
person.
Of any of the lore. I mean, any of the lycanthrope, or what's the other? What would be the canonanthrope? What would be the dog version of that?
Oh, those were our cynocephalies.
Cynocephalies. Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is why I want to pause here and think about this. Why, in ancient Greek myths and cultures, do we have cynocephaly and goat men? Mm-hmm. And in Indian culture, there's dog men myths. Yeah. In China, there's dog man myths. And in Michigan, there's the sightings of the dog man. And why are there werewolf legends all over Eastern Europe? Why do the Scottish even have this as a possible thing when they're like, oh yeah, these things exist, these goat men, dog men? It's like, how on earth did this even become a topic that people are trying to figure out, oh yeah, this is where this comes from?
Yeah. Well, it depends on where we're going to go with this, because you and I have had countless conversations, and we've talked about the Hidden Citadel, the Hyzerian kind of thing of the Watchers and the creation of multiple species by way of just creation distortions.
Yeah.
I mean, you have that. I mean, and the intent is to kind of disrupt and contaminate not only belief systems, but, the human flesh itself.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm coming back to with this is basically, I think that these things... Now, and the other thing, too, is like if you found, let's say, a grave where you dug up the bones of a dog man.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, but what would happen? Scientists that are uncovering the grave would look at it and say, oh, they buried the dog with their person and something got to it and there are bones missing.
Yeah.
Never really be able to look at it and bring this up and say, look, here we have scientific evidence of a dog man.
Yeah.
You know? And then on the other hand, too, is like the flood was designed to wipe out a lot of these creatures.
Yeah.
And whether it was a second incursion or whether it's like some of the myths say that some people were able to survive the flood, I don't know what the deal is, but I do think that these myths probably come from that, and people may have seen something. But then there's the other side of it. It's like, well, maybe what they saw was somebody that was deformed, and then they just said, oh yeah, that guy looks like a goat, and he must be a fairy child or something.
They're trying to make sense of it, yeah. And you see, there's genetic disorders. You've talked about that before, that the face becomes so, the person becomes so distorted that you think they must be something else, and it's just a genetic.
And the other thing too, genetic distortions are a result of the fall too, and for all we know, the genetic distortions that people could be possible genetic tracers that are linked somehow to Nephilim. Not saying that the people are Nephilim, but just saying that maybe there's some sort of genetic connection somehow that's been passed down that is a cause of it.
It's interesting though, because what's his name? Boyle. What's his first name?
Kenny.
Okay. Kenny Boyle. What he was describing, so it really almost sounds like a case of moral consequence, deterrence, made into myth or a belief system, whatever, but given to deter people from certain kinds of immoral behavior. Because when he said, if you encounter the fairies, and this is really kind of it's really kind of like profound if you kind of really kind of allow yourself to go into it. He said, you will suddenly be whisked away, and time will feel like, right? It'll be 100 years will pass, and unless at the moment that you realize where you are, you will disintegrate, right? Okay, so it's almost like you will have been whisked into like a Sheol, you'll be whisked into a timeless place that is you're on the brink. You to me, it's almost like you've been secured into the underworld, and at the moment that you realize you're there, that's your doom. But what brings you there? It's almost the bacchanals that they have in the Old Testament, and that's what they drinking in that you are right, exactly. And so if you've engaged in that, you've placed yourself in a and this is where it gets kind of like in a place you can't return from. It's like Neverland or something. You've been placed in there, and now time is suspended. And it's almost like the Twilight Zone or Fantasy Island. You got everything you want, and it's death. That's what you get. If you continue in it, you'll continue to do it. But at the moment you realize, or try to savor it or value it, looking at it from the outside, you're dead. Yeah, so it's almost like a consequence of engaging in that immoral like kind of lifestyle by saying, And so I was listening to it, and he goes, but the way you don't is to abstain completely. You go in, and while they're doing their stuff, you stay still. You don't touch, you don't eat it, you don't dance, you engage in the sinful, whatever it is. You don't talk to them because you don't entertain. Yeah. Literally, you don't entertain evil. Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing, too, that he talks about if you do happen to get back, the minute you realize, then all of a sudden you crumble into dust. And it's like, there was the guy I can't remember, this was an Irish tale, but it was the guy that he went off into the fairyland, and when they came back, they said, do not get off of your horse until you get to your town, or you'll die. And somebody needed help, so he went to hitch them to his horse, and then in the process of pulling them out of the mud, it threw him from his horse, and then he died, And so it's like, there's a certain rule system that they understand. We don't understand. And like with Thomas the Rhymer, what was interesting is the minute they got to Elfland in the ballad, they're basically in a path where there are three forks in the road, or it's a road 3 times.
3 forks. That's almost 100%.
Almost there. They're sitting there, and he says, off in that direction is a dark kingdom, and she said, yeah, that's hell. And off in that direction is a bright, gleaming kingdom, and she said, yeah, that's heaven. And she said, and my kingdom is out there on the way. And so they start going down the path to her kingdom, and there's all these beautiful apple trees, and she picks an apple and says, here, eat this, and you'll have wisdom to where you can predict the future. And so she gives him the apple, and he eats it. And that's why when he came back to Scotland, several years had passed, but then he laid out, and this was a real guy. That's what's interesting about Thomas of Ercildoune, I think was where he was from. He there's a list of prophecies that he made, and a lot of them came true. So it's like and a lot of his stuff is housed in one of the big important Scottish buildings, I think in Edinburgh. And then there's also the Scottish flag. Have you heard of this? Where there was a flag that this whole Leon She and a human married. I don't know if they had kids, but she gave the guy a flag that was like a magical flag that whenever they took it into battle, they would never win. They would never lose the battle. Wow. For years, they carried this flag, and it's like a silk ish kind of material, and it's hanging in one of the clan halls. I think it's a clan hall of one of the great manors in Scotland, and even to this day, and it's like, but it's all tattered, and you can see that it's been through many, many battles, and it's like that allegedly was given as a gift, and it's like, well, number one, if you go back in time to when this flag would have been given, how common is a silk type of material from that time period? I mean, I know that the medieval people could make satin.
Yeah.
But silk had to be brought in from China by traders and stuff. Yeah. And it's like, would some Highland king just get a Chinese silk flag? I mean, that doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense,
Amazon.
Right.
Timu.
Yeah. But then there are Irish stories too, where I think it was one of the stories of Finn McCool, where he went under the water for a long time, and he came up into this city that he thought was like on the other side of the world. Well, that would have been probably China.
Yeah.
A lot of the things he described were similar to like some of the things from China during that time period. So it's like, well, where would they come up with a story like that? It's really, people had jet black hair, and they all wore silk clothing and all this kind of stuff.
That's Japan. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, how would they know that? Yeah. And so I thought that was an interesting thing. But he talks about other couplings too. So like the Gilly She is when it's a fairy man that marries like the farmer's daughter, and we get there's also the Gilly Du, or the Do, I think is how it's pronounced.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
He's a cast out fairy that his task is to guard the rainforest of Western Scotland. Or is it? I think it's Western Scotland. And if you go into the forest, he will attack you. And he has jet black hair, and he wears clothing that is kind of like a ghillie suit, which is what like snipers wear. That's where they got the idea from the ghillie suit was from the description of he had like lichen and branches and twigs and stuff in his clothing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, okay, well, I could see that could actually be a real guy.
Yeah.
Like if you've got some guy that he got banished from his clan or something, and he went to go live out in the woods, and he adapted this form of clothing, and who knows, it could be a whole family that had lived out there sometime in the past. It's like, I could see that could have been an actual...
I picture the guy from Lord of the Rings, for The Hobbit. Who's the Brown?
Radagast
the Brown.
Somebody like him, that he's...
All right, but listen, there's some things that, before you keep going, it's really, I think I'd say this every episode, it's really interesting. It's really interesting, because there are some parallels here, and it's kind of like a which came first kind of thing. So, for instance, when Lot's wife is leaving the place, the realm of destruction, and it's kind of like, do not realize where you are. Go in faith the way you're supposed to be going.
Yeah.
If you realize, I'm putting in the parlance of what Boyle is talking about. Yeah. If you realize where you are and you turn back to look, which is examining, you will turn to
salt,
dust. You'll become You'll crumble. Be really cool if we found Lot's wife somewhere, like in reserve somewhere.
Have a pillar in Jordan, I think.
Oh, really?
Lot's wife, and it's all salt lick basically.
And then okay, hold on. So, all right, but then in in Scripture, I'm just relating these back to Scripture, because in Scripture there's an event I can't remember what the war was, but there's a banner of union and favor that needed to be if it was.
Oh yeah,
they would win. All right, and also there's the idea of Moses. So that is something that's a parallel. And then is there an example that we both know really well where there's some sort of place? It's kind of gardeny that has a guardian in front of it that doesn't let anybody in. Will kill you if you come in. In Eden. Yeah. So I mean, there's so far 3 for 3.
Yeah, that's
it. Going. Yeah.
Okay, so the next one he mentioned were selkies and mermaids, and or some people call it silkies. I think maybe that's the Irish pronunciation, but they
the fabric one. Yeah.
If you can get their skin, or tail, basically, if it's a mermaid, when they take it off to take on human form, then you trap them and make them into your wife or whatever. And the children of the silkies are excellent sailors, and one of them he talked about is a magician, a Scottish magician named Michael Scott, and he had the Red Fairy book that allowed him to perform all sorts of magic. And there's another story of a Selkie man marrying a sea witch named Ursula, which is where the Disney people got the idea for Ursula in the Mermaid. But I want to know more about the Michael Scott guy. I meant to look at before the show, and I got to check it out. But maybe the next time we talk, or maybe here in a second, I can look him up real quick and find out more information.
Well, the thing that it's
go ahead.
When you're bringing this up, it makes me think of in the end times. There's really no stopping the Antichrist from, or even the kind of most of the triumvirate of the Antichrist, the Beast, and whatever. Prophet, from doing damage to the people of the earth. Really, I mean, those who, especially those who don't believe, those who remain Christians, right? I mean, they will just do. There's nothing stopping them, except for one thing that they essentially are afraid of, or right. And you pointed this out a long time ago. There's one thing that opposes them that's not a part of that, and it's is it Kittim? The
ships of Kittim.
Yeah, they're not afraid of them at all.
No, attack them.
So then I'm thinking, well, since the story is
because whoever the king of the north is also attacks them.
Okay, so with that, there's really the story of Scripture is human man and God, and then versus the spiritual dark, the spirits of evil powers against it. Right. But if there's a third class here that's not subject to the vulnerability of man and humans against the dark forces, then since they're not subject to them, they can oppose them. So I'm wondering if if this other group, the Kittim, and then the king, are human, and they're like the third. So I mean, they fall into.
Well, and
you're not going to harm us.
Something else that Boyle talked about was that fairies have their own clans and kingdoms, just like in Scotland in the old days that they had, or in Ireland had. And so you had there is apparently a high king of the fairies that when Thomas the Rhymer was getting ready to die, apparently the queen of the fairies came and brought him back to fairyland so that he wouldn't have to die. And now Thomas the Rhymer's job is he's basically part of amassing the army of the highest king of the fairies. And well, wait a minute, why would the highest king of the fairies need to amass an army? In with your ships of Kittim. I still think the ships of Kittim are the United States Navy, but I really like the idea that maybe they're
This extraneous force. That's like you're not going to do this on our watch.
that's so much better.
I didn't bring the beast. We'll take him down. Roll back to all of you. The Antichrist.
Oh.
The beast out of the sea. You're not taking us down. Run from Cam. Run from Cam. No, just coming.
So apparently was another one of these guys who was a real guy. He lived from 1175 to 1232, which apparently is before Thomas the Rhymer, and his reputation became so mysterious that later generations remembered him as one of the greatest wizards in European folklore. He was a scholar, translator, astrologer, and mathematician whose learning seemed almost supernatural to the people of his time. Over the centuries, stories about him grew until he became a legendary Scottish sorcerer who could command demons, split mountains, and foretell the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really kind of cool.
Apparently, he came from somewhere near the Scottish borders in a place near Melrose.
Mm-hmm.
And this was during the intellectual revival of the High Middle Ages when scholars were rediscovering ancient... This would have been about the time that... where did Lewis and Tolkien teach?
Cambridge? Oxford? Okay.
About the time when Oxford and Cambridge was being created.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I guess he went to Toledo, Spain, and did a lot of work where...
I was in Ohio.
Toledo, Ohio.
He found Klinger from MASH.
Yeah. He went to what was it, Six Flags, and then to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he went to Toledo, Spain, which is interesting because that's where Toledo steel comes from, which was supposed to be one of the best metals for making swords.
Wow.
And Scottish claymore swords are known as being not the big claymore like from Braveheart, but the Bastille claymore rapiers.
Oh yeah,
they're known as some of the best blades that you can get in Europe. So that's kind of an interesting thing. And basically, he translated Aristotle out of Arabic and into Latin, which was sort of one of his claim to fame. So that's kind of... And then he became the astrologer to Frederick II, who was the Holy Roman Emperor. That's kind of cool. I didn't know about this guy. It'd be interesting to learn more.
Why was Aristotle in Arabic? It would have been in Greek.
Well, apparently the Greek manuscript had gotten lost at that time, and he found a copy of it because the
poetics
and the Christians were all in Toledo at the same time.
Yeah.
And so apparently in one of the libraries there, he found a copy. Now imagine if he had been in Italy or in Greece, maybe he would have found a Greek copy. But
if the Christians and the Arabs and the Jews were all in Toledo, then the only thing you would exclaim is, "Holy Toledo!"
True.
Yeah, that is.
He sounds like an interesting guy, and if Kenny's watching this one, do some videos about.
That's right.
Well, Scott, he's interesting.
We'd like to see them.
I would. We talked about Selkies and mermaids. Fen folk are said to steal children, so that they can raise them and then marry them. And then the Brulachan, I think is how he pronounced it, which are children of some fairy, and they're basically like an evil black cloud with teeth and red eyes, and I guess it eats people or something, and you don't run into one of those. Then he talks about being abducted by fairies, and how a lot of people have talked about this. There's a whole collection of fairy women called Beyond Nye or Beni or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
These female women who are turned into fairies.
Female women.
Female women. Human women,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that were abducted by the fairies, and then they turn them into fairies so that they can nurse children that they steal from other families. And apparently he talks about the thieving of fairies. They're known for being great thieves, but they only steal things that you're not grateful for. So if you complain about your baby and you're like, I wish this baby would stop whining all the time.
Postpartum, yeah.
Someone would say, well, you're not
taking that.
Baby. Yeah. You obviously don't want it. If you're like, why don't my cow milk right? And you're like, well, they don't like their cow, so the cow. And this goes into something he talks about called elf shot, where if an elf shoots you with their tiny little flint arrow, they basically suck away your soul. And he had a word for it.
Stupid.
Cute. Draw back. Oh.
Yeah, because if you get shot with Cupid's arrow and you encounter the love or the passion, then you've lost your soul. That makes a lot of sense.
It does. I wish I had the word. I know I wrote it down.
A lot of parallels here. I mean, even the UFO idea, because, before we had an idea of technology, if abductions were happening by way of something from another dimension or another planet or whatever, then it would seem... It would seem the same as, like, so we just say it's, whatever our concept of a supernatural being is, which would be fairies, or having supernatural. Tuareg?
Tuareg is the soul.
The traveler, right? Oh, okay. Isn't that where Volkswagen gets its name? Tuareg, does it mean like traveler?
Maybe. I could be pronouncing it wrong, but it sounded like he was saying Tuareg. But Tohrada.
Oh, no, that's not spelled the same. Yeah.
Yeah, and basically, if anything goes to fairyland, a milk cow or whatever, its body stays in our world, but when you it, the milk's bad because the good milk is going into fairyland. If you shot, you're existing, but your spirit and all your life force is going to feed something in fairyland and keep it going. If your dog gets shot, his has gone over to enliven some dog in fairyland. Leeching off the life force.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, it sounds like the parallel of the stories and the concepts or whatever it is of stealing your soul. Like, so when you sell your soul, you give up. But what's interesting here is it tells what happens to it. Like in the story of Robert Johnson or anybody else, when they
what happened.
Or why they need the soul. Well, you could say in this case, the soul is why would the devil need the soul? Okay, he's not just. I mean, in the biblical sense, it's like, I'm doing it to take away from them going to heaven and reconciling with God. In this case, there's almost a functional use to it because if I take the soul, I can use it to inhabit whatever it is here in my dimension and bring good here or something productive or valuable or power here, because you could say that each of the souls, each of the person's each of whatever they've been given in their gift is almost undestroyable, like so it doesn't just disappear, it has to go somewhere.
I think you're absolutely right, and what's interesting about it to me is now we're kind of crossing. Well, before I say what I want to say, I want to acknowledge that was amazing, because if you think about somebody selling their soul and you're like, I'm not using it, but it's like if the soul is the vitality and the life of the person, then like, well, wait. I hate these cars with the mufflers that sound like a machine gun.
Yeah.
I want to duck and get down whenever.
Yeah.
So I was never a soldier, but I've done ministry in places where there's been lots of machine guns. So
yeah. Oh yeah.
Inner cities in like Atlanta and town in New York, Orange County choppers.
Oh yeah.
And I remember on Halloween driving through there, and there was like machine guns going off the whole time. So it's like I hate those cars.
Yeah.
The explosions. Anyway, they suck the life force
The vitality. Out. Yeah.
Vitality. But now we're getting into the alien phenomenon, where you look at the cattle mutilations, where the cattle are completely drained of all of their fluids, and there's like a desiccated husk out there in the land, you know, and so much so that like even other ants and insects won't even eat the carcass.
That's crazy.
I was watching the and I don't know how much of the show is fabricated for TV or how much of it is, but this part was pretty believable. On the Skinwalker Ranch in one of the early seasons, a cow, there's an orb that appears over the field, and a cow.
I heard about that. Like this.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, his eyes kind of rolled up, and he just fell over and died.
Wow.
And they were like, well, he's putting off radiation. Like when they were taking their Geiger counters, the whole area was very unsafe with how much radiation was being shown on the Geiger counter. And then the thing you know, they get to the next season, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, let's go check on that cow that died. And they go out there, and nothing has touched the cow. It's just sitting there, same as it was. It's just now all dried up like a big piece of beef jerky, and out puff, and it's just laying there, and no ants have eaten it, no birds have come down to chew on it. It's like, you know, and this is not unusual. There's a lot of cases like this where the sheep or the cows or whatever your flock is has been attacked by something, and it sucked out something. Well, what did they need? Well, maybe the Scots and the Irish people with their fairy lore were right. Maybe these entities are sucking away the life force.
Yep.
Maybe they don't fully do it every time. Maybe take enough to where you're just like, you know, and certainly when you watch people and hear their tales of their alien abduction encounters, they seem like they've been damaged, you know, and they're like serious PTSD or something that they're dealing with.
Well, go back to what you're saying. Going back to what you're saying before, the idea of kind of like harvesting. You don't harvest everything. You have to kind of leave something there. I was just reading about, I think it was in Judges, about the Midianites and the Amalekites, and they were like, they'd come in and wipe out, and said they would take out whatever the Israelites would grow in grain and grapes and stuff. They come in and take it all. Well, they must have left some because they kept planting. And when Gideon was being sought to be the leader, he was actually hiding in a grape, whatever, the threshing, whatever, the threshing press. He was taking his grain there, so so you don't wipe everything out. You leave some there to keep growing, so you can keep coming back. It's horde mentality. You go in and wipe out what you can, and then take out.
It's like
and leave some.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the Magnificent Seven, where basically the bad guys come around and everybody's like, "Oh, hurry up! Put it under the floorboards. Stick it over here. Hide it up there. You know, make our daughter dress up like a boy. You know, all that stuff."
Yeah.
So that the bad guys don't take everything, and it's the locusts. They come in and they don't necessarily get to eat every last thing, but there's a remnant, you know. But this is what blows me away about gardening, and I was thinking about this. I planted some more medicinal herbs this week or last week in little planters, and they're already popping up, and I'm like, holy cow, I've got so many of these little herbs that I don't know what to do with them. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to repot them into little containers and sell them, and just, you know, see if anybody wants them.
And this little stand, that'd go big.
I think so.
Heck yeah.
I've got way more than I'm going to need, so I thought I would do that. But I was like, one plant produces enough seed that if the seed all is good, you pretty much repopulate that entire plant species, you know, that one thing. And it's just amazing to me. It's like that God cares enough about the world that he would allow plants to work like that. You know, you have a strawberry, and how many, we eat a strawberry and we don't even think about it, but how many billions of strawberries could you grow off of that one strawberry?
True. Yeah. It's that when it's fruitful and multiply, it wasn't just one event. I mean, it was that multiplication was the term of blessing right there. That it wasn't just like for a time. It was almost like exponentially.
It really is.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool.
And so it's like if there is an entity that can somehow like milk things of this dimension to suck off the vitality, it's like that does sound like a pretty dark, a vampiric kind of entity, you know.
Yeah, because it needs it for its own vitality. Yeah.
And that's why I wonder. I still don't know where I'm at with the whole, where the neutrality of fairies, or if there's like maybe good fairies opposed to bad fairies. You know, it's like it's a hard call because they're in the path. I wrote his name down. Let me see. Oh shoot. What's his name? Boyle talked about a pastor that had written. Oh, here it is. Robert Kirk. I think he was from the 1600s or the 1700s, and he was trying to basically figure out how fairy lore and Christian lore intersected with each other. And his idea was that fairies, demons, jinn, all these otherworldly creatures are all the same entity.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. Yeah.
I don't know. I still am not sure if there's the good ones and the bad ones. If a third of heaven fell, that means 2/3 are still good and doing what they're supposed to be doing. But then that would explain the fairy battles. And so one of the legends that Boyle talked about in one of his videos was the Aurora Borealis, and how two rival fairy clans that were fighting each other, and whenever they would fall to the earth, that's how the earthly fairy clans got repopulated. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. So now if we take that and extrapolate that to the idea of the war in the heavens, where the word was cast down, but the thinking is, well, wait a minute, the bad guys might have had some casualties too that got knocked out, and then it's like, well, if they got knocked out of heaven, the good guys, then would they be assigned missions on Earth? Would they be guardian angels or things like that? It's like, that's kind of an interesting.
I've never thought about it. But it's until you just said that. But there was a finite amount that were created, a finite amount of all angels, because of a third. That means, like you said, there's 2/3, but then. That's calculable, and that means it also means that it's just not kind of random. They can all essentially kind of be named and have significance, and because they're because they each have a number, so they each have a significance of why they're created, what they're created for, a specific function. Especially if they're angels, then there's some sort of message that's associated with them. The only thing I was going to say is that. I don't know why I thought of it during the Boyle Instagram thing. Was going back to like the Nevin idea. That's the cherubim at it's guarding, and that in our parafables, the Nevin is able to defend. What's her name? Herschel is able to defend her, but that would mean that he's leaving the post. But they're not subject to time and space and dimension. So they can't be everywhere, but they could be more than one place at once. And Well, what I'm saying is like a cherubim could be multiple and single at the same time. It could be have multiple persons, but they could be.
Why the
explain.
A man or a lion,
Yes,
bear or whatever.
Exactly.
That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Dude, I have to think about that one.
Yeah.
Some thought for a while. I don't know, but here's one thing that I've been kind of trying to figure out this whole time. What Chiakin pedal going to do, because I know an Irish pedal, fairy pedal at one point, but I think we need to pitch a Scottish one, and I'm thinking it's got to have some sort of a drone like a bagpipe.
Drone like a bagpipe, but also if you shift, let's say you got to shift some sort of dimension, then it decays. Whatever it is, decay, right? Like the idea if you are entertaining the pedal, if you are engaging the pedal, it's fine. If you disengage the pedal, whatever you're doing at the time has a significant decay. So it's kind of like,
oh yeah, so it doesn't get off.
Just show it off.
It has to decay
so
out.
It sounds like it almost sounds like glass shattering, just like
over the hill.
Right. That'd be cool because that's what happens with the.
So what about this? You've got a pedal that it's designed to where you're only using it for lead. Yeah. So you're playing like single melody lines with it.
Yeah.
It gives you that bagpipe in the back, but it also has to have some fairy element that
ethereal, kind of like the shimmer, but yes,
sort of thing.
Particle verb, yeah.
Pipes, yeah. You're playing lead, and then when you click it off, it's fading off while you're going on and playing your whatever else you're playing.
Yeah.
There you go, Josh. You should do that.
My favorite takeaway from this episode is you gave me a great name for a metal band.
Oh yeah?
I'll wait until Monkey's done.
Get off. The people don't want to hear you.
Here it is. Desiccating Husks. I was like, wow. Desiccating Husks.
My cousin Johnny and I were thinking about coming up with a metal band called Leather Onion, and we were like, it's a similar kind of.
Yeah. It's appealing. Yeah.
If you love us, go to WordPress or our WordPress page. It's hiddencitadel4.wordpress.com, where we have a host of articles about fairies and lore, wolf people, bear people. I think I've got about that. There's vampires, all sorts of strange aliens. You can read about it at Hidden Citadel 4, and those articles are far more in depth than most of what we can really get into in just an hour over here on our show. Yeah. Also, if you love us, go buy a t-shirt. At redbubble.com, you can support us by getting one of our Hidden Citadel t-shirts. They come in all sorts of styles. Or if you would rather, you could go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or wherever books are sold, and you can buy one of our many books. We've got books about music. We've got books about theology. We've got stories, novels, all sorts of stuff. You get our Encyclopedia of Weird Crap, Volume 1, Parables. They're all there. And if you love us too, you can check out our bands, the Fantastic Flying Frogs and the Brothers Graham. There's a lot of stuff there. And also, I just want to shout out again to Kenny Boyle. Thank you for your cool.
Well done. Yeah.
We're going to try to send this to him, and hopefully you'll see that the videos that you're posting are being watched and enjoyed.
Yeah.
So until next time, stay in the Citadel because
night is coming.
The watchman replies, morning is coming, but night will soon return. Silly.